POV, you're wandering through the conservatory always and sneak a peek into a practice room where a guy is sitting at the piano, glancing at the score and seamlessly translating it into music in real time. And this is you. How is it that some folks seems to possess this innate gift for sight reading while others, like this guy here, finds it more of a puzzle? It leaves me questioning the nature of the skill. Is it a rare gift or can it be developed over time? In the grand scheme of things, I believe sight reading isn't a fixed, unattainable skill. It's more of a trainable ability. I may be stepping into a bit of speculation here, but I'm inclined to think that sight reading developing has its limits. Like any skill, some individuals excel because they possess that extra dash of talent, that innate edge, pushing them a step further. That being said, learning to sight read is a journey that anyone can embark on. And I emphasize learning to sight read because let's be clear about this. Sight reading is very different from reading. Hello, I'm Luca and I'm a terrible sight reader. And it's not just a run-of-the-mill bad, it's the kind that comes with a hefty side of anxiety. You slap a score on the piano and ask me to play and I struggle even if I can. On the flip side, you can throw me any curveball like, hey, can you improvise some Mozartish stuff for, I don't know, 20 minutes in front of 1,000 people and I'm all freaking in. Arpit, cool 60. What the fuck? Here's where it gets interesting. I've noticed fellow musicians who would straight up crumble if faced with the same improvisational challenges. So what's the deal here? I have my theory. I didn't step into the world of music through the gates of a music school. My initiation into the musical realm wasn't via the pages of a music book. It was through listening. I was self-taught. And here's the thing. The fundamental difference between musicians, in my opinion, some kickstart their musical journey by reading, while others, like me, by listening. I say today all the time as a teacher, especially as a little kid, active participation in music isn't the name of the game. At 4, 5, 6, you're more of a passive recipient of the sounds that weave into your life. And those who enter the music school scene early often get introduced to the classic teacher says hi, hands you a book and says, let's play from this sheet scenario. It's a structured read from the sheet music approach. And for those who enter the musical world early on, it's a structured affair and they teach you the piano keys, the basics, but there's a catch. The music is in the score. What do I mean by that? The music is contained within the perimeter of the book. And this early, indoctrination, but it's not in a bad way, sometimes poses a challenge later in life, especially when it comes to everything that's not reading. The idea of music residing anywhere other than on the written page is a bit of a mind bender. For these students, music is extrapolated from the score and brought out to reality. On the flip side, you got folks like me. I didn't dive into the musical scene until a bit later. I think I was like 11 or 12. My entry point wasn't through reading sheet music, it was getting my hands on a keyboard. My father stole it from somewhere. So no musical education, and yet I found myself actively involved in the music. Well, for you listening who are born after 2000, let me have my grandpa moment here. Learning music in the late 90s as a self-taught non-music reader meant No apps, no YouTube, no tutorials, no music education, not internet, not even a hint of music theory. Forget about all the synthesia falling notes YouTube tutorials that kind of tame you like a little monkey, while at the same time they don't actually teach you anything about music. And by the way, I created some of those. So why are I even talking about consistency here? My first attempt with music unfolded through unconventional avenues. Music from films, video games, CDs, big deal back in the day, and of course a lot of TV. Music for me wasn't confined to a book or a sheet. It was an elusive force echoing from the world around me. It wasn't about converting dots on paper, from the paper to the reality, right? It was about stumbling upon something in the real world, a sonic manifestation that captured my attention, and then setting out to recreate it on my instrument. So it's a stark departure from the conventional act of reading music from a textbook. Think about it. It's rather the opposite. It's like an artistic response sparked from what resonated with me. So music in the score versus music out of the score. Now, let's talk about reading music. That entered the scene much later for me. When I took the plunge into the conservatory, I was like 19 years old. Truth be told, I couldn't read music. My knowledge of the treble clef and the bass clef was, to say the least, limited. I didn't even know the proper fingerings. I kind of secured a spot in the conservatory. How? Because I could play. I could play by ear, and quite well all considered. Oh, by the way, just a disclaimer for the self-help motivational police. I don't have perfect pitch. If I manage, you can too. Here's where the things took a turn. Solfeggio and reading music entered the scene, and oh boy, it was a rough ride. I can't pinpoint if it was the teacher's approach or just me being lazy, but I mean, let's just say my initial encounter with solfeggio wasn't a love story like at all. The struggle was real. I procrastinated like for 3 years, my solfeggio exam. I pushed it to the very brink. Why? Because it felt like scaling a mountain. It was too difficult, it was too much. And again, play it for me, let me listen and I could replicate it. Ask me to read it from the score? No, I can't. It just doesn't work, you know? My dictation exercises, for example, they were flawless. Rhythm, melody, harmony, check, check, check. But reading and solfeggio, no. Make me read this da, da, da. I can't. The struggle to bridge the gap between the musical paper and the automatic response of my fingers on the keyboard was real. And over time, there was some progress, mind you. A bit of improvement in my reading skills, but not that much, to be honest with you. But it wasn't only my fault. Especially in traditional piano programs, the focus is often on solo concert pieces. Ensemble music takes a backseat, and that, my friend, is a bit of a downside, in my opinion. The curriculum pushes you towards mastering fewer pieces, but mastering them to perfection. It's more about being exceptional at a select few than dabbling in a variety. And looking back, if I could write my own curriculum, I'd rather play all 32 Beethoven sonatas rather than perfecting just 3 or 4. What do you say, quantity over quality? Not really. See, you know me, guys. I'm a very down-to-earth guy. Once you're out of the academic cocoon, the likelihood of diving into a music job that revolves around reading and sight reading is way more probable than finding yourself performing a solo program. Truth be told, it's never been my reality to be asked to showcase a major piano work in a concert setting, apart from the ones I organize for myself. And I know it's very likely to be the same for you. The interesting twist is that when the music industry asks you to do something as a pianist, it's often about reading or about playing. It's, if not, sight reading and playing. And also, when it comes to the real world of music jobs, nobody's really losing sleep over how rainbowy you can play. What they care about is whether you can pull off the thing stat. As you grow older and responsibilities pile up, the practicality of sight reading becomes the game changer, because you don't literally have the time. You don't have time to invest like 1 month into learning a new piece. But now, let's get down to practical stuff, shall we? Okay, so first of all, you are not a pianist. No, seriously, you are not. At least while you're sight reading. The mindset shift came to me from one of my former teachers who told me, when you're sight reading music, you're not a pianist. You're a conductor conducting a pianist. You have to learn to detach yourself, to become external and guide the music. You're not reproducing notes, you are conducting yourself through the piece as it unfolds. The point of it is that the music has to flow in your mind even before your fingers touch the keys. That's why you always feel like you're chasing the notes. The music has to take shape in your mind first. And sure, the physical act of playing becomes second nature with time, with experience, but the music has to be in your mind before your fingers join. So let's say you're faced with a brand new piece on the piano, never seen it before. Let's say it's a simple one-pager, right? What's the first move? I engage with it mentally. I let my eyes follow the notes, and in my mind, I start imagining the music. I can even sing it in my mind, or I can even hum it. You pick a tempo. Pick a tempo that is comfortable with you, maybe a tad slower than you normally go. The key here is to maintain the character of the piece while allowing room for the unexpected. Choose a start and an end point for you to sight read, and then start. Oh no, wait. Before starting, there's a super rule, total deal breaker, super important. Never, ever stop. No matter what. If a wrong note slips through, let your conductor side keep the momentum while your piano side catches up. If you happen to realize you hit the wrong note, never ever correct it. Why? Because as we pointed out before, you are the conductor now. And stopping to correct a mistake can throw off the rhythm, can throw off your imaginary orchestra, right? The rhythm is so much more important than the notes. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Why can't you sight read flawlessly? Because you are not quick enough with the automation between eyes and fingers. So, in a way, it's a timing problem. The last thing you want to do is to play around with timing then. You change rhythm according to your mistakes. You want to keep the tempo steady, and you want to force yourself to keep it going no matter what. The key to improving sight reading lies in prioritizing, I don't know, the music over your fingers, okay? So music is more important than your fingers. Envision yourself as the last member of a grand orchestra. The show must go on, right? You're not going to make the whole orchestra stop because you hit a couple of wrong notes, right? And then we can talk about mistakes afterwards. Here's the age-old debate. Eyes on the score or occasionally looking at the keys. Some swear by the former, asserting that your eyes must follow the music without distraction, finding the keys blindly on the keyboard. And on the flip side, there are those who advocate for occasional peeks, at the keys, strategic gaze, to ensure you're on the right track. Golden rule, to me, my opinion, seems to be that it kind of hinges on the complexity of what you're sight reading. If you're dealing with a piece where your hands movement are relatively confined, staying with a similar range, it's likely more effective to look at the score, because this minimizes distractions. When it comes to navigating complex piece with the frequent jumps across the keyboard, expecting to keep your eyes glued to the score at all times might be a bit ambitious, right? The reality is, if your fingers are taking leaps and bounds, there's a margin of error that comes with the territory, right? Especially with those like wide jumps. Now, the key here is to continuously work on improving your ability to navigate jumps without constantly peeking at the keys. It's a skill worth honing. However, pragmatism prevails, as you know. If the piece is a real like acrobatic feat and there's a split-second opportunity to briefly glance at the keys to ensure you're on the right track, might be a good idea to do it. Of course, there's a balance, so you have to evaluate the risk. Is the risk of not hitting the right note in a jump higher than the risk of momentarily losing your place in the score? Cost and benefits. But of course, and this goes without saying, try to steer clear of the whole, the ping pong game of constantly shifting your gaze between up and down, keys and score, keys and score. It's a slippery slope, and developing that kind of automatism is a no-go. Based on my experience, the comfort zone for this no-peeking confidence lies within an octave range with both hands. So mastering the art of navigating within this range, feeling at ease without relying on constant glances like that is a game changer. Why did I decide to make this video in the first place? You might wonder, right? It's needless to say that it sparkled from my personal experience as a musician, and not the best of experiences, I might add. I've had some challenging episodes that were quite humiliating and significantly humbled me on a personal level. And at one point I even contemplated giving up sight reading and piano accompaniment altogether because it just became too painful. And revisiting memories of failure in front of others and receiving harsh feedback from teachers and peers was not easy, but it was necessary. And during the COVID pandemic, I decided to, immerse myself in sight reading, and I started with simple pieces, which proved beneficial, especially when I began teaching. Teaching required me to sight read many basic pieces designed for younger beginners. And although these pieces were straightforward and very simple, they still demanded the skills, like sight reading skills. And after all, it wouldn't make sense to delve into a level 1 piano book for children like to study it. It's just impractical, so I found myself compelled to improve. Also, sight reading develops a lot with your technique. So for example, I don't have like a great, amazing, stellar piano technique. So this is also probably something that starts to weigh in once you reach the intermediate level, especially when the pieces gets very much faster. And another thing that helps you out a lot, and really I say a lot, is music theory. Learn as much music theory as you can, everything related to harmony in different genres, in different styles, everything related to music, first theme, second theme, modulations, chord cadences, and all these things help you a lot, but really a lot, because they help you develop some overarching structure and figuring out a lot about reading even without reading. Because music is a system, right? And system, quote unquote. And if we aim to read, it's built on automatisms and patterns. These are essentially modules that stay relatively consistent, and there might be some variations, but it's more or less the same concept. The more you learn about these patterns, the less you actually need to read note by note. For instance, if you recognize the shape of a C major chord, you don't have to decipher C, E, G. You know it's a C major chord. You bypass the need to memorize individual notes or intervals. Instead, you see the shape and you translate it from the paper to the visual representation on your keyboard. Might sound confusing initially, but it's part of the journey, you know, for someone improving at sight reading, and it gradually becomes clearer as you progress. So how to practice? To sum it up, I consider the most crucial aspects to be firstly adopting a conductor's approach to music. So recognizing that you are not just a pianist, but also a conductor in perspective, and the priority is the music and you don't want to interrupt yourself constantly. Second, it's essential to reduce the reliance on looking at the keys, although occasional glances are acceptable, especially when faced with challenging jumps. Of course, delve into music theory and all the good stuff, as it holds greater importance than one might initially think. Another point, like I said before, is finding a tempo that suits you, avoiding extremes of being too slow and altering the piece's character. If the tempo is still challenging, consider switching to an easier piece for sight reading. Lastly, a tip I haven't discussed yet, but I will share now. So sometimes I get asked, how can I practice sight reading? Right? So my personal weapon of choice, I have it here actually, is the Choralgesänge by Johann Sebastian Bach, this book here. I think you also find it on PDF on Petrucci. This book is actually a game changer when it comes to mastering reading and sight reading, because the chorales are all like 4 voices pieces, and they offer a very simple background harmony, and yet let's say the positions, voices and counterpoint change each time, and most importantly they provide comfortable hand positions and minimize movements between voices, which is also enhancing coordination and harmony comprehension and even timing. Also, the chorales are arranged by text, which is allowing for breaks during practice by each fermata. And the thing, sorry, be careful. And the thing is that these chorales are so many that you can just pick one day at random, and by the next day you already forgot about the previous one. So it's kind of an infinite loop of sight reading exercises. And also I find them incredibly effective for practicing transpositions. Perhaps this could be, I don't know, maybe a topic for a future video. Maybe let me know in the comments if you're interested in a video about transpositions. I don't know if it's like a trendy topic. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any thoughts, any comments or questions about reading, sight reading or whatever, feel free to share. I'm not like an expert in sight reading, but I can definitely share my struggles at least. And as always, random CTA, let's keep this algorithm busy as I gear up for a more dynamic YouTube presence, let's say, in the coming year. Thanks again for watching. Signing off now because it's late. Until next time.